Every single day, you're either building the life you want or letting it slip away. And it's not always about the big leaps. It's the small, intentional work done daily that shapes your relationships, your purpose, and your peace. I'm not here to overwhelm you with a to-do list. I'm here to hand you 10 tools. And today, we'll unpack 6 of them so you can build forward one day at a time. You talk to yourself more than you talk to anyone else, all day, every day. And the tone of that voice, it matters more than we think. Most of us don't even realize we're doing it. That quiet running commentary behind everything we do, that was dumb. Why'd you say that? You'll never get it right. Those aren't just harmless thoughts. They shape the way we see the world, the way we show up, and the way we treat others. You can't build a strong life with a voice inside you constantly tearing things down. Here's the hard truth. If someone else talked to you the way you talk to you, you probably wouldn't stay friends with them for long. But for some reason, we tolerate it. We let that inner critic run the show unchecked day after day. And what happens? We get stuck. We start avoiding risks. We second guess ourselves in conversations. We say no to things we should say yes to, and we say yes to things we know aren't for us just because we don't feel confident enough to stand tall in the truth. So we have to audit the self-talk, not to fake positivity, not to slap on affirmations we don't believe, but to start telling the truth. You see, that critical voice in your head, it thinks it's keeping you safe. It's a defense mechanism. But protection isn't the same as progress. Saying, I always mess this up, isn't honesty. It's a story you've told yourself so many times it became the script. So you have to pause and ask, is this true or is this familiar? Because what's familiar can feel like truth even when it's not. Start catching those moments. When you hear yourself go down that mental spiral, stop, literally say out loud, that's not helping. It might feel weird at first, but that's you grabbing the wheel back. That's you refusing to hand your day over to a script that doesn't serve you anymore. Replace criticism with curiosity, not why am I like this, but where did this come from? What would I say to a friend feeling this way? When you ask better questions, you give your mind a better direction to go. And listen, I'm not saying you have to love every part of yourself every single day. That's not realistic. But you can choose to stop fighting yourself. You can work on talking to yourself the same way you'd talk to someone you care about. Because here's the real goal: to build an internal environment that supports you. Especially on the hard days, to have your inner voice be a place of honesty and encouragement, not punishment. Imagine waking up tomorrow and your self-talk didn't sound like a drill sergeant. It sounded like a coach, a calm, grounded coach. One that says, we didn't get it right today, but we learned. One that says, this is hard, but you've done hard things before. One that says, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep showing up. That's not soft. That's powerful. Because the way you talk to yourself becomes the way you experience your entire life. So work on your self-talk every day. It's not about being nice. It's about being honest and choosing to speak to yourself with the kind of respect you'd expect from the world. You want to build a life that lasts. Start with the voice that lays the foundation. We all have moments when something triggers us: an email, a tone of voice, a comment from someone who knows exactly how to push that one button. And before we even realize what's happening, we're reacting fast, sharp, emotional. It's automatic. But just because something feels automatic doesn't mean it's necessary or helpful. See, most people walk around reacting to everything. They think they're responding, but what they're really doing is letting emotion take the wheel. And when emotion drives, logic gets pushed to the back seat. The problem isn't feeling something. The problem is acting from that feeling before you've actually thought. That's where emotional neutrality comes in. It's not about being cold. It's not about bottling things up. It's about creating space between what happens and what you choose to do next, because in that space is power. When you give yourself a moment to pause, you gain control of the story you're about to write. Without the pause, you're reacting based on old habits, old hurts, and old programming. But with it, you're responding from clarity, from intention. Let's be real, we don't get better outcomes from escalating. We don't solve problems by snapping back. We don't build stronger relationships by proving a point in the heat of a moment. you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, man, I wish I had said that differently. That's not because you didn't have the right words. It's because the emotion hijacked your clarity. Here's something to think about. Every time you feel emotionally charged, your body sends signals: tight chest, racing heart, clenched jaw. That's not weakness. That's awareness. That's your body saying something's happening. You get to choose how to handle it. Start catching those signals. When you feel that rise coming up, pause. Breathe literally. In through the nose, out through the mouth. That moment of breath is not you backing down. It's you stepping up to lead yourself. You don't have to attend every emotional argument you're invited to. You don't have to explain yourself in real time just because someone else is pressuring you to. You can say, let me sit with this and come back. That's not weakness. That's maturity. People will try to draw you into their chaos, their urgency, their drama, but emotional neutrality lets you stand like a calm center in the middle of a storm, not because you don't care, but because you care enough to choose peace over performance. When you train your emotional neutrality, what you're really doing is strengthening your boundaries. You're telling your nervous system, I've got us, and that creates safety, not just for you, but for the people around you. Ever notice how when someone around you is grounded, it calms the room? That can be you. That can be your presence. But it takes practice. It takes catching yourself when you want to fire off a text in frustration. It takes recognizing when you're about to speak from defense instead of direction. It takes choosing stillness over scrambling. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about not letting your emotions become your entire identity in a moment. Because who you are isn't defined by your worst reaction. It's shaped by your strongest response. Every day, you'll get opportunities to practice this. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A coworker takes credit for something you did. Your kid throws a tantrum. Your partner says something careless. You get to ask, is this worth my peace? You get to decide, what outcome do I actually want here? You can't control what hits you, but you can control how you hold it. And when you learn to respond instead of react, that's not just emotional maturity, it's emotional freedom. Relationships don't fall apart overnight. They fade slowly, quietly, not because of some huge blow up, because the small deposits stopped happening. We get busy. We get distracted. We assume the people in our life know how we feel. So we stop saying it. But relationships are like bank accounts. You can't keep making withdrawals if you're not putting anything back in. And too many of us are walking around overdrawn, wondering why connection feels so hard. You want a strong relationship. You build it with daily deposits, not grand gestures, not once a year apologies. I'm talking about the consistent little things. The 5-second check-ins, the hey, just thinking about you text, the way you look someone in the eye and actually listen when they speak, not with your phone in your hand, not half in, half out, but fully present. Because what people remember isn't always what you said. It's how you made them feel day after day, moment after moment. And when you're intentional about showing up that way, it adds up. That's equity. That's emotional safety. That's trust being built in real time. We often underestimate how much power we hold in the small moments, asking someone how their day was and actually meaning it, remembering a detail they shared weeks ago, pausing before giving advice and just listening instead. But what happens is we get caught in routine. We stop noticing each other. We see our spouse or partner every day, so we stop really seeing them. We assume our friends are good because they haven't said otherwise. We tell ourselves we'll reach out next week, and then next week turns into next month. And then when the cracks show, when someone finally says, I feel alone, or we don't talk anymore, it feels sudden. But it wasn't sudden, it was gradual, it was quiet. It was a string of days without connection, without effort, without care. So here's the challenge. Make one small deposit every day. It doesn't have to be huge. Send that text. Give that compliment. Ask the second question. Follow up on something they mentioned. Hug a little longer. Say thank you. Say I'm proud of you. And I get it. Some of you are thinking, but I don't get that back. You might not. Not every relationship is balanced, but you're not doing this to keep score. You're doing this to live with intention, to build connection from your side so you can sleep knowing you showed up with love and presence. Now, of course, not every relationship needs to be saved. Some need boundaries. Some need to end. But for the ones that matter. The ones worth keeping. You've got to treat them like they matter. Don't wait for the birthday. Don't wait for the crisis. Don't wait for something to break before you show up. Because by then, it might be too late to fix. When you deposit into someone's life regularly, you're telling them, you matter to me even when nothing's wrong. And that's where real connection lives. In the unremarkable moments, in the ordinary, repeated acts of care. So don't underestimate a simple message, a kind word, or a quiet moment of presence. That's the stuff people carry. That's what they remember when things get hard. That's what keeps the relationship strong enough to weather the storm. Because when life hits, and it always does, it's not the big things that hold us together. It's the strength of all the small ones we chose to give every day. Most of us know we need boundaries with people. But what we don't always realize is that the hardest boundaries to set are the ones inside our own minds. It's the mental space we give to things that don't serve us, the replaying of conversations long over, the imaginary arguments, the constant scanning for what might go wrong. It's not just exhausting, it's unsustainable, because when your mind is constantly wide open to everything, it gets crowded fast. And just like a house with no doors, if you let everything in, nothing feels safe inside. Mental boundaries aren't about shutting the world out. They're about filtering what gets your attention. And your attention, that's your most valuable asset. Where your focus goes, your energy follows. So if your focus is always on what you can't and control, or who doesn't like you, or whether you're good enough, then that becomes your atmosphere. You breathe in anxiety, you breathe out doubt. The truth is, not every thought deserves a seat at the table. Not every opinion needs a response. You can hear it, you can notice it, and still decide not to carry it. One of the most powerful mental boundaries you can set is learning to say, that's not mine. That tension someone else is projecting, not yours. That guilt that creeps in because you didn't say yes to something you didn't want to do, also not yours. That internal voice that's echoing old fears, old doubts, old shame, still not yours, at least not anymore. It takes practice to recognize what's yours to hold and what isn't, because a lot of us were never taught that. We were taught to be nice, to keep the peace, to say yes, to take on more, to absorb the energy in the room and fix it if it feels off. But that's not compassion. That's self-abandonment disguised as helpfulness. Mental boundaries say, I care, but I won't carry it all. They say, I see what's happening, but I don't have to invite it into my body, into my sleep, into my identity. You've got to have a filter, especially now. Social media, news, nonstop notifications. There's more noise than ever. And if you don't build a gate around your mind, it's going to get hijacked by everyone else's urgency. So ask yourself, what am I consuming? Who gets a say in my day? Is this thought helping me or hurting me? Sometimes it's not about stopping the thought. It's about not feeding it. You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to fix it. You can just notice it and let it pass. Like a car on the highway, a cloud in the sky. That's a boundary. And then there's this, you also need boundaries with your own expectations, because the pressure we put on ourselves, that internal list of I should be further better, stronger, more productive. That's its own kind of mental clutter. And every day it chips away at your peace. So instead of waking up already behind, already in a fight with yourself, ask, what do I need today to stay grounded? Not just, what do I have to get done? That's a shift. That's a recentering of your energy around what actually matters rather than what just makes noise. This is a daily practice. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness. You catch yourself spiraling, you take a breath. You recognize the thought, you reset. You remember that just because a door is knocked on doesn't mean you have to open it. So if peace is the goal, mental boundaries are the strategy, and they're not selfish. They're essential, because a mind that's protected is a life that's directed. Curiosity doesn't get nearly enough credit. It sounds soft, passive, something you associate with kids asking 100 questions before breakfast. But the truth is, consistent curiosity is one of the strongest tools you can carry into your day. Because the moment you stop being curious, you start assuming, and assumptions, they kill growth. Most of us aren't walking around angry. We're walking around convinced we know what the other person meant, convinced we've got them figured out, convinced we're right, which means they must be wrong. But the second you stop asking questions, you stop seeing clearly. And if you're not seeing clearly, you're not leading well yourself or anybody else. Curiosity keeps you open. It says, maybe there's more to this than what I first felt. It invites perspective instead of judgment. It creates space in conversations instead of corners. And that space, that's where empathy lives. That's where understanding has a chance to breathe. Start simple. Instead of jumping to defend yourself in a disagreement, ask, can you tell me more about what you meant by that? Not sarcastically, genuinely. That one question shifts the energy. It says, I'm not here to win. I'm here to understand. And you'd be surprised how often people just want to be seen that way. This applies to more than just conflict. You want to grow in your work, in your purpose, in your leadership. Stay curious. Don't just look for answers. Look for better questions. Instead of what do I need to do today? Ask what am I learning right now? Or what am I avoiding and why? Curiosity peels back layers. It shows you what's really under the surface without shame or assumption. Just truth, just data. It's easy to fall into routines, to do things the way we've always done them. And comfort can be a quiet trap because the brain wants certainty. It likes clean answers, firm labels, safe categories. But curiosity doesn't play by those rules. It challenges the narrative. It says, is that belief still serving me? Did I actually hear them right? Or am I filling in blanks with my own insecurity? Is this a fact or just a feeling I haven't questioned yet? That's powerful because when you stay curious, you stay flexible, and flexibility means you're harder to break. You adapt better. You listen better. You lead better. Now, curiosity isn't always easy. It requires humility. You have to be willing to say, I might not know everything. You have to set your ego down and pick up a beginner's mindset, even when you've been doing something for years. Because pride says, I've got this. But curiosity says, what else is there to learn? And that attitude, it shows up in how you treat people too. When you stop being curious about the people close to you, the relationship starts to stagnate. You assume you know what they're thinking. You stop asking about their dreams. You miss the subtle changes because you're not really looking anymore. But when you stay curious, you keep discovering them. You notice, you engage. You grow together instead of apart. So how do you build this into your day? Ask questions, especially when it feels easier not to. Take a breath when you're sure you already know the answer and check in again. Be more interested in what you don't know than what you're trying to prove. Curiosity isn't weakness. It's awareness. It's the courage to say, let me listen deeper. Let me look again. Let me grow instead of defend. Because if you want to become more grounded, more connected, and more effective, stay curious every single day. Your body speaks before your words ever do. The problem is we're not always listening. Most of us were taught to power through, push past, suck it up. Somewhere along the way, rest became a reward for when everything's done. But everything is never really done, is it? So we keep moving, keep grinding, keep ignoring the signs until our body starts screaming what it's been whispering for weeks. That tension in your shoulders, that's not random. That tightness in your chest every time you open your inbox, not a coincidence. The headaches, the fatigue, the sudden irritability, your body is trying to say something. And if you won't slow down to listen, it will find a way to get your attention. We treat the body like a machine. Feed it, use it, rest it occasionally, just enough to keep it running. But you're not a machine. You're a system, a complex emotional, physical, mental system. And when one part is overloaded, the rest starts to strain. Listening to your body isn't about being soft. It's about being smart. It's knowing that burnout doesn't start the day you crash. It starts the moment you ignore what your body is trying to tell you. You don't just wake up one day completely overwhelmed. You arrive there slowly. One skipped meal, one sleepless night, one more commitment you didn't have the energy to take on, but said yes to anyway. Your body keeps score, not out of punishment, but out of protection. There's wisdom in the way you feel if you're willing to pay attention. But most of us only check in when we're already on empty. And by then, the cost is higher. It's harder to focus, harder to connect, harder to show up the way you want to, because your system's already running on fumes. So the question isn't, how do I get more done? The better question is, what's my body trying to tell me today? Maybe it's telling you to stretch, to hydrate, to move. Maybe it's asking for stillness, silence. 10 minutes without a screen. Maybe it's not exhaustion. It's emotional overload showing up as fatigue. Start small. Notice the cues. Tight jaw. That's probably tension you've been carrying all day without realizing it. Sudden fatigue after a conversation. That might mean it took more out of you than you thought. That low-level anxiety you feel when you wake up, it could be a signal that something in your life needs adjusting, not just medicating or suppressing. And sometimes your body is the first place you feel a no, even before your mouth says it. That sinking feeling, that unease, that subtle discomfort, that's your body helping you draw a line before your words even form it. So many of us override those signals. We numb them, explain them away, because we don't want to be inconvenient or seem weak or admit we need a break. But there's nothing noble about self-neglect. There's no trophy for burnout. Rest isn't a luxury. It's a boundary, a decision to treat your body like something worth protecting, not just something you use to survive the day. And listen, this isn't about going on vacation. This is about the daily micro decisions you make to honor what your body is trying to say. Choosing to eat when you're hungry, to breathe when you're tense, to stop scrolling and close your eyes for a minute, to give yourself permission to bust be, not just a do. Because when your body feels safe, your mind thinks clearer. You make better decisions. You communicate with more clarity. You show up more grounded, more present, more you. So don't wait until your body breaks down to start paying attention. It's been speaking to you all along. It's time you started listening. Every single day, we're making choices, whether we realize it or not, choices